Department of Justice says there's insufficient evidence to initiate charges against Leung Chun-ying and Holden Chow over UGL payment controversy. Huawei's CFO granted bail by a Canadian court.
Hello, good evening. The Department of Justice decided today there is insufficient evidence to initiate charges against former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and lawmaker Holden Chow. That's after the city's anti-graft body sought legal advice from the department following an investigation into alleged misconducts in public office involving both Leung and Chow. Sharon Tang reports on the latest in the UGL payment saga.
The Independent Commission Against Corruption initiated a probe into the alleged corruption and misconducts of Leung Chun-ying after receiving complaints. That's after the former chief executive was accused of entering into an agreement with UGL Limited and receiving payments pursuant to the agreement. The deal was believed to have involved $50 million. Another allegation concerns a suspected interference by Leung and legislator Holden Chow. In May last year, the then CE admitted he made changes to a legal proposal on an investigation into a controversial payment he had received. Leung approached pro-establishment lawmaker Holden Chow to change the scope of the UGL investigation. This evening, the Department of Justice explained its decision not to institute prosecution against the pair. Insufficient evidence was the reason cited. The department said there was no legal requirement for Leung Chun-ying to declare the amount he was to receive under the UGL agreement before he became the SAR's chief executive. Also, the department found that amendments made by Holden Chow would not affect the proper functioning of the select committee involved in the LegCo probe. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Meanwhile, lawmaker Lam Cheuk-ting, one of the complainants who approached the ICAC, says he is astonished by the decision of the Department of Justice.
I cannot understand the rationale of the DOJ. Therefore, I request DOJ fully disclose the legal advice to the general public, attend the Legislative Council meeting to explain the matter in detail. If we compare the UGL case with Donald Trump case, obviously UGL case is much more serious.
Huawei's chief financial officer has been granted bail by a Canadian court 10 days after her high-profile arrest. Meng Wanzhou will remain under virtual house arrest in Vancouver. She faces a lengthy U.S. extradition case that could take years to play out. Jeff Tang reports.
As the saying goes, the third time's a charm, and that was certainly the case for Meng Wanzhou. The Huawei CFO walked free from the British Columbia Supreme Court in Vancouver on Tuesday night after being released on bail of 10 million Canadian dollars. That's after Meng cited numerous health problems, while her family assured the judge the 46-year-old would remain in Vancouver at one of her houses in an affluent suburb. Among the conditions of her bail, Meng must wear an ankle bracelet to ensure she remains at one of her two Vancouver homes from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., pending the outcome of her U.S. extradition case. She was also ordered to surrender her Hong Kong and China passports. In addition, 5 of her friends pledged equity in their homes and other money to guarantee Meng's compliance. Meng was arrested on December 1st while she was in transit at Vancouver International Airport at the request of the United States. She allegedly misled banks over Tehran-linked transactions in violation of US sanctions against Iran. The incident sparked a diplomatic row between China and Canada, while further heightening trade tensions between Beijing and Washington. But Meng's ordeal is far from over. The extradition process is due to start on February 6th and could even take years if appeals are made. If a Canadian judge deems the case against her is strong enough, the country's justice minister must decide whether to extradite her to the US. If so, she faces US charges of conspiracy to defraud multiple financial institutions, with each carrying a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison. US President Donald Trump also weighed in on the case, vowing to intervene if it serves national security interests or helps close a trade deal with China. Meanwhile, the US State Department is reportedly considering issuing travel warnings to its citizens after Canada accused China of detaining one of its citizens, a former diplomat, in retaliation. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
The International Crisis Group is calling on China to release one of its employees immediately. But Beijing says it has no information regarding reports of the detention of a former Canadian diplomat. A Brussels-based nonprofit alleges that its Northeast Asia senior advisor, Michael Kovrig, was detained by state security officials in Beijing on Monday night. A Foreign Ministry spokesman Lu Kang said he has no information about the arrest, but pointed out that the ICG was not registered in China. Therefore, he says its activities in the country are legal. It is unclear if Kovrig's reported detention is linked to Canada's arrest of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou at Vancouver's airport earlier this month. Beijing had warned Canada of serious consequences over Meng's arrest.
China has reportedly agreed to cut tariffs on US-made cars and auto parts from 40% to 15%. The Chinese government was also said to be once again buying large quantities of US soybeans. That sets the stage for new talks aimed at easing the bitter Sino-US trade war. A White House official said Beijing communicated its plan to slash tariffs on US autos yesterday during a phone call between Chinese Vice Premier Liu He, US Treasury Steven Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. However, Washington has yet to receive documentation or a timetable for the tariff reduction. News of the move had driven up shares of automakers before news of Donald Trump's threat to shut down the US government triggered a sharp pullback.
U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to shut down the government as he and Democratic leaders bicker over funding for his planned border wall.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck, because the people of this country don't want criminals and people that have lots of problems and drugs pouring into our country. So I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I also know that, Nancy's in a situation where it's not easy for her to talk right now.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting as the leader of the House Democrats who just won a big victory. But let me just say this. What the president is representing in terms of his cards over there are not factual. We have to have an evidence-based conversation about what does work. So let us have a conversation where we don't have to contradict in public the statistics that you put forth, where they have apprehension.
I think we can agree on is we shouldn't shut down the government over a dispute. And you want to shut it down. You keep talking about it.
And still ahead tonight. Japanese police take away 2 Diaoyu Island activists who stage a protest at a Tokyo war shrine. New measures to enhance the appeal of the city's first lifelong annuity scheme for senior citizens. A co-founder of Occupy Central defended his political act from 4 years ago. Benny Tai today blamed the police for obstruction that followed and reviewed who inspired him to launch the civil disobedience movement. Another day at the district court trial, which took place in the West Kowloon Law Courts building. Today, Benny Tai presented his own closing submission. This relates to his charge of conspiracy to commit public nuisance in launching Occupy Central in 2014. He summed up this case as one of Hong Kong people who love Hong Kong very much, with genuine universal suffrage the way to resolve the city's deep-seated conflicts. Civil disobedience, Benny Tai stressed, is not to obstruct the public, but to rouse public concern to injustice in society. He then cited Martin Luther King Jr. as inspiration for the non-violent movement. He continued if police didn't block access to the demonstration area, roads would not have been occupied, and no tear gas would need to be fired. The defendants said matters were no longer in their control after police fired 87 canisters of tear gas, and that the force must be responsible for both the obstruction outside the demonstration area and what followed. Tai ended his submission by saying, "I am not afraid or ashamed of going to prison. If this is the cup I must take, I will drink with no regret."
Well, despite chairing the MTR Corporation, Frederick Ma said his authority in the railway operator was limited. This as the inquiry looking into the Hong Hom Station construction scandal continued. Kana Chu reports.
It was Frederick Ma's turn to shed light on the controversy. The former Commerce Secretary said his authority within the MTRC is limited as he is just a non-executive chairman. It was only in May that he was alerted to problematic steel bars at Hong Hom Station by the firm's corporate affairs director. Before the MTRC submitted an investigation report to the government in mid-June, Ma asked whether the 235,000 couplers mentioned in the document was accurate. Aidan Rooney, former general manager of the North-South line of the Sha Tin to Central Link, responded by showing a spreadsheet containing stock information in 32 lofts. The document was supported by many signatures. Frederick Ma said he tried his best to ensure what was reported to the authorities was true, as evidence needed to be shown to the public. In July, Ma received a text from MTRC's CEO Lincoln Leung on inaccuracies in the report. According to Ma, former projects director Philka Wong noted mistakes were made as the report was prepared in a panic. Ma was later contacted by 3 more government officials on the serious crisis. He quoted a meeting with Chief Executive Carrie Lam in August, who said the government had lost confidence in the MTRC's management of the Sha Tin to Central Link. She requested at least 4 senior project managers to step down. Commission Chairman Michael Hartman later questioned Ma whether the MTRC valued management or engineering quality more. In response, Ma said that was something for the Commission to find out. As requested by the government, the MTRC will now speed up work in opening up and inspecting the Hong Kong platform. The goal is to finish this in 12 weeks instead of 16 weeks and submit an interim report at the end of next month. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Public response to the city's first lifelong annuities scheme for senior citizens has been comparatively cool. That's prompting the authorities to introduce new measures to enhance the appeal of the scheme. Sharon Tang reports.
It's been almost half a year since the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation rolled out its annuity plan, which aims at turning retirees' savings into a fixed income for life. The corporation has received more than 9,000 applications since July. Half of them were completed, but the subscription amount totaled $2.8 billion, or only 30% of the expected distribution. Authorities say some applicants backed out, saying they wanted to reconsider their options.
They are actually more concerned about the product design features, like whether it gives them sufficient protection in the event of early death or in the event of need for liquidity for medical or dental needs.
That's prompted the authorities to introduce new measures to enhance the appeal of the scheme. In the original plan, beneficiaries would only receive $660,000 for their $1 million premium in case of death. Starting today, there will be a full lump sum death benefit payment. The insured can also make a special withdrawal of up to $300,000 to cover medical and dental expenses. Authorities have also raised the maximum premium to $2 million. While experts say the older one gets, the higher return he or she will receive, this man says the plan will not be of much use to him. I won't be able to finish up $2 million before I die, he said. He added he would prefer saving up in banks where interest rates are more stable. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The Democratic Party may face its biggest brain drain ever as 59 members announced they are leaving the party. They include 5 district councillors and 6 community officers from Eastern New Territories districts. They disagreed with the handling of lawmaker Lam Cheuk Ting, who represents the New Territories East constituency at LegCo. Since it was founded in 1994, the party has twice experienced an exodus of members. Its chairman admits the departures will affect the party's power base.
When party's members try to find ways to leave the parties, we have to respect their decisions. It will definitely reflect some of our power-based deteriorations. So we have to take times and take our more active roles to rebuild our strength.
And that's the news.
Good night.